How's everyone doing today? Welcome back to On The Ball. Welcome back to another round of Review the Prem, where me and my brother going head-to-head in predicting the Premier League outcomes. A big week of Premier League football. Not long to go. The scores on the doors are 414 to 389. Quite a big gap opening up for Sim. The way the scoring works, it's 5 points for a completely correct scoreline. 1 point for a correct result in the star man. Once you pick him, you can't pick him again. 5 points for a goal, 2 points for an assist. Let's get into the weekend's action, starting off with the big relegation dogfight. Luton against Everton. Everton already safe. It was a massive game for Luton. And I thought they played fairly well, to be honest. Did finish 1-1. I went for 2-1. Sim went for 3-1 to Everton. And I thought Luton were the better side on the day. And I really felt like they should have taken home the win, especially with that massive chance that they did have right at the end.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't watch this game because I was out at the time. But look, as much as they were unlucky and as much as they could have easily won the game, a point doesn't help them, let's be honest. With the results around them, they really needed 3 points with games running out. It's going to be very, very difficult from this point for Luton to stay up now with their goal difference that it is. They need Forest to basically have 2 losses and they need to win their last 2 games. And for a team that has 1 win in their last 5, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to do that. And they really needed to get all 3 points in this game. It was vital. And they gave it a good go, especially being 1-0 down. You would have maybe expected the worst, but they did get back in the game. And maybe Adebayo being back in the team will really help them because he's been such a big player for them. And obviously he got the goal as well. Really good striker's finish, something he's been doing all season. But it's only a draw. And is that enough? I don't think so.
It's not going to be enough, but I mean, I really do feel for them because they just missed a massive chance right at the end, which really should have gone in the back of the net. Everton only scored from a penalty, and I did think Luton were the better side pretty much throughout the game. So it's very unfortunate for Luton, but you can't say they didn't give it their all this season, can you? Because they've been a breath of fresh air.
Well, the fact they've taken it this far, not many people expected it for it to be this close, and that everyone expected them to be down a lot earlier. So they could take it to the final day, and then you never know. But I got a feeling next week could be the end for them. Very well could be. Moving on to Arsenal Bournemouth, it's finished 3-0 to Arsenal on the day. Sim went 2-1, I went 2-0. So I missed out on 2 5-pointers in the last minutes on both of these games. Arsenal, I thought they were brilliant, particularly in the first half. Completely played Bournemouth off the park. But this game is probably just going to be remembered for those 3 terrible refereeing decisions on the day. The Arsenal penalty, never a penalty. Havertz completely bought that. The goal that was disallowed for Bournemouth, I mean, those have been given all season, so I have no idea why, especially as a Tottenham fan with the amount of times we've conceded goals like that and they've been allowed is ridiculous. And also a decision that went against Arsenal in terms of the sending off with the foul on Bukayo Saka. I thought that was 100% a sending off. Yeah, I think all those decisions that the referee got wrong, in my opinion. I think obviously Arsenal were well in control anyway, so I feel like when they did get the penalty, even though it was just before half-time, which is obviously an amazing time to score in such a pressure fixture, if you're going at half-time 0-0, maybe the pressure starts to settle in, maybe it starts to get a bit tetchy. You saw what happened against Aston Villa, where it went in 0-0 at half-time, and it started to get a bit hairy, and obviously they end up losing the game. But that moment was a very, very big moment. Obviously, he missed host of chances before that moment, but it's not a penalty. Havertz very clearly drags his foot to initiate the contact. It's a dive. It shouldn't have been given. It's one of those where VAR will look at it, and because there's contact, they're not going to overturn the decision. That's usually how things go with VAR. So I think Arsenal got away with that one. And also going in at half-time, 1-0, massive advantage for them. And they went on to win the game quite comfortably. They made it 2. Although what I would say is in the second half, Bournemouth were definitely a lot more of a threat. And I thought Arsenal probably scored that second goal against run of play. But Bournemouth, for all their good possession, they were really exploiting Ben White down the right-hand side. But they couldn't really create too many clear-cut opportunities. Arsenal defended very well. But they did get their moment. 2-1 with, I think, 15 minutes to go or so. That could have been a hairy situation for Arsenal if that goal gets given, but I thought it was a disgraceful decision. I was looking at the replays, I thought, surely they're going to overturn this, surely they're going to allow this goal because there's barely any contact between Solanke and Raya. Also, Saliba could have been penalised for a penalty on Solanke, and that's Billing on that same move as well. So I thought it was a disgrace of a decision, and these are things, as a Spurs fan as well, it's doubly as frustrating, as you say, because Vicario has been literally bullied for so many weeks and nothing's been done about it. Yet Villarreal gets this little slight push, not even a slight brush, and it gets penalised. So very frustrating, but it's a very good win. A lot of people saying this is Arsenal's toughest game because Bournemouth are the form side compared to Man United and Everton, who they're playing in the next 2 games. So could be their toughest game out of the way. Really, really important win, and the fact they won it so convincingly will give them a lot of confidence going into the last 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, Arsenal know they just need to do their business and rely on a Man City slip up at some point. And I guess it looks like at this stage, neither side are going to slip up, to be honest. You got to give credit to Arsenal, because after that Villa game, everyone said, including me, that they're going to falter now. April Arsenal is coming back, but they got back on their bike and they haven't looked back. They've won every single game since then. So as much as I hate to say it, you got to give credit to them.
Yeah, but they need to get the job done on Sunday.
Moving on to Brentford against Fulham, it finished 0-0. I think this was just a classic end of season game where, with 2 teams with nothing to play for, Sim went for 2-0 to Brentford. I went for 2-2, so I get a point for this one. And not really much in it. It was a fairly even game. Not many clear-cut chances in the game, and it was just like one of those games, wasn't it?
Yeah, literally. Both teams have nothing to play for. Fulham probably had the better chances, couldn't really convert them. Brentford had a few moments with Mbeumo and Tony in the forward line, but unfortunately, Fulham defended quite well. Bit of a drab affair. 0-0, literally a mid-table end-of-season clash, and that's what it proved to be.
Burnley against Newcastle next, and Burnley really need to put in a performance here if they had any chance of survival, and they did lose 4-1 at the hands of Newcastle. Sim went for 2-1, he gets a point. I went for 1-1, and I mean, Newcastle were brilliant. I thought Burnley started the game actually really well without really doing too much. They maybe could have scored if they were lucky, but after that, Newcastle just took complete control and absolutely battered them. Players like Bruno Guimaraes completely running things from the middle of the park, Anthony Gordon, Alexander Isak. I mean, these players just performing out their skin at the moment, and Burnley were the ones on the receiving end this time.
Yeah, really tough one for Burnley to take, considering we've been complimenting them for being a bit more resolute in recent weeks, but they were so open in this one and they got torn to shreds. Every time Newcastle went forward, Isaac and Wilson and Gordon and Guimaraes were completely opening them up. They literally didn't have an answer. To be fair, as you say, they did start quite well, and Newcastle probably did score against run of play when they did open the scoring, and Burnley would have felt hard done by. But the way they defended in that first half is inexcusable, especially when you're trying to battle relegation and you're trying to secure safety. You can't afford to be 3-0 down in the first half and the game basically away from you, and that's what it proved. Obviously Newcastle are in good form of late and they should have been wary of that. Unfortunately for Burnley, maybe it was just a step too far trying to get a result on this one. They've got couple of big games coming up. If they can take it to the final day against Forest, they might fancy their chances, but unfortunately I don't think they'll make it that far. I think Burnley, who do they have next?
Tottenham.
They need to win. They need to go to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and win, essentially.
To be honest, I don't really have to. You probably expect Spurs to win, but I don't have the confidence to say that we're going to go and win that game.
You never know for sure, but when they come up, clearly they came up against a very good Newcastle side. They ended up being beaten 4-1, coming to the Tottenham Stadium. It's not going to be easy to win that game. A draw is not good enough. They need to get all 3 points, because a draw, if they do draw, that's it. It's over. Because they're 5 points behind 17th, so they can't afford to just sit deep and just like counter and like play for a draw, essentially waste time. They need all 3 points here. So I think in that situation, it's going to be difficult for them not to be brave and leave gaps, and that's what Tottenham will be looking for. We'll be previewing that game later, but
to be fair though, the way teams have found success against Tottenham is sitting deep and catching them out with the gaps that we have in our defence, and that might be the best avenue for them.
We'll see. Look, I don't think they'll win that game, but they need to win. A draw's not good enough, so they haven't been winning many games of late. Even in their good form, only 1 win in 5. They do have a few draws. I wouldn't be surprised if they could get a draw, but I just can't see them winning. I can't see them going to Tottenham and winning, which they need to do. So I think it could be a bye-bye for Burnley, unfortunately. They gave it a decent go near the end, credit to them, because they looked down by January and they gave themselves a fighting chance. But unfortunately, this result for me confirms that they're just not going to be good enough to actually go the extra step of, battling for survival. If they take it to the last day, I'll be mightily impressed, but I don't think they will be able to.
And if Company does keep his job, which I envisage he does, I mean, I do expect Burnley to come back up next season.
Yeah, I think so. He's proven his worth in the Championship. I think I still think there'll be other Premier League teams potentially looking at him. I think maybe he had heights of going back to Man City or a top team coming in for him, which I think they're probably called on him for now. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's a middle Premier League team if they want to go for him.
I don't know who's going to be looking for a manager out of the Premier League teams. Maybe a mid-season thing, but will he want to leave Burnley mid-season? I'm just looking at the Premier League table and which teams are looking for a manager. I mean, Man U are mid-table at the moment. They'll probably be looking for a manager, but
I think he'll go there.
Yeah, I don't think he'll go there. So where else is there to go?
Maybe we'll go Forest.
Yeah, Nottingham Forest could be a good shout. That's the only one, really.
I think he probably will stay at Burnley for now, to be fair. I think he'll stay there, get them back up, and maybe feel like got some unfinished business. That's what Sean Dyche did. He got relegated, stayed with them, and then they went back up. And then he ended up staying there for a while and having a really good stint in the Premier League.
Yeah.
So maybe Company will go the same way.
Moving on to another clash down at the bottom. Sheffield United 1, Nottingham Forest 3, and this was a vital 3 points for Nottingham Forest, which has put them as massive favourites to stay up now. Both of us went for Forest wins. I went 2-1, Sim went 1-0, and it was just classic Sheffield United, wasn't it? Go 1-0 up at the beginning, play some all right stuff. Ben Berrington-Diaz from the penalty spot. And then Nottingham Forest really showed their quality, didn't they? Callum Hudson-Odoi getting on the score sheet twice. Yates as well getting on the score sheet. And I thought, again, a really deserved victory for Nottingham Forest.
I disagree. I thought Sheffield United should have won that game.
You think so?
Yeah, for sure. Especially in the first half. They should have been 2 or 3 up. They had many chances.
They had a little period.
I thought they dominated that first half. Diaz had a few one-on-ones. They had chances from corners.
Just classic, though, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. But they went 1-0 up, and I thought Forest really scored against run of play when they equalised. They didn't deserve that equaliser. A great goal from Hudson-Odoi. Don't get me wrong. Showed the quality.
That's what happens when you got the quality.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not saying Forest aren't better than Sheffield United. They definitely are. But Sheffield United, I thought, should have been 2 or 3 up before Forest equalised. And then even when they equalised, they had a number of chances to regain the lead. Sheffield United, a number of chances, which they spurned really badly. And to be fair, in the second half, Forest took control a bit, and they did show their quality. And obviously, Yates scored, they took the lead, and then they really kind of played a smart game, countering very well on Forest with the likes of Langer and Hudson-Odoi and end up sealing the win. But I think they'll count their lucky stars that Sheffield United didn't take some of those chances that they made, because they could have been out of sight before Forest got back in the game. I
just felt like Forest just showed their know-how a lot more than Sheffield United. When Sheffield United missed those chances in the first half, yeah, it's fair enough. They did create those chances, but I think Forest created just as much, particularly in the second half on the break and sitting deep and countering on them. And they showed they know how it means to win a game. Sheffield United can't do that.
Yeah, we've known that all season. I'm saying in this game, I think a fairer reflection would have been if Forest were, or if Sheffield United were 2 or 3 up before Forest even got back in it. So I think they'll be counting their lucky stars that they were still within touching distance when they did get back in the game. But they went on to win, and it was a massive win in a real pressure situation, and they needed that. So I think this could be the win that secures survival. It's still only 3 points between them and Luton, and they don't have the easiest games. Obviously, you've got Chelsea at home, who are in decent form, and then they have Burnley on the final day. So I think, luckily for them, I reckon the clubs around them will probably do the job for them. They won't have to beat Chelsea. But it'll be a big moment if they can get the result next week.
That's what we're saying, that Nottingham Forest and Arsenal both relying on Tottenham this season.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's go to the Etihad. Man City 5, Wolves 1. Sim went for 3-1. I went for 4-1, but it was 5-1. And this was the Erling Haaland show. A hat-trick before half-time. 4 in total, 2 penalties, 1 goal, which was unbelievable finish, wasn't it? With a curling effort into the far corner. And Wolves just didn't know how to deal with Man City. And this is Man City's end of season form just coming to fruition once again. They just seem to be scoring 3, 4, 5 goals a game at the moment. They had a poor game last week against Nottingham Forest, but apart from that, I think in their last 8 or 9 games, they've just been sensational.
Yeah, and Wolves had no answer to it. They were in scintillating form. When you go into these games, you know how sometimes, especially even when you see Arsenal, sometimes they come to these games and there's a bit of uneasiness about him, but you just feel so assured about Man City that they're just going to absolutely rip these teams.
They've done it 3 years on the trot.
They know how to do it. They're so used to it. They're so comfortable in these situations now, and they've just got no worries in the world about winning these games. There's no fear about them dropping points, and this is one of those games. What I would say is that penalty, the first penalty, was, I thought, a bad decision. I don't think it was a penalty on Gvardiol. I think he takes the shot. I think as they're coming together afterwards, I don't think it's a foul by Nori. I do think the referee got a bit influenced by the Man City players crowding him straight after that incident, and I think his mind got clouded a bit about that, and he pointed to the spot. I don't think he was initially intending to. I think he got influenced a bit, and I think that was a very lucky decision. That obviously opened the scoring. But once that happened, it was only one-way traffic. And they did get a consolation in the second half. But I think, City scored within a minute of full scoring. That showed them, don't you dare try and get back in the game because we'll just rip you to shreds, essentially. And, Haaland coming in strong right at the end because, people have been critical of him in recent weeks. But he's come back from injury last week, got the goal off the bench. And this one, 4 goals. Not bad for a League Two player.
Not bad at all, and he's been going at Roy Keane on the weekend, hasn't he? And there's been a bit of a narrative around Haaland saying he's not had such a strong season. Anyone for ice cream? But I think that when you look at, I'm just trying to get his numbers up because I think for someone that's not having a good season, you're talking about some of the best numbers in Premier League history, or in the recent Premier League years anyway. So what are his numbers?
Oh, I know he's got 25 goals this season.
25 goals, I think, in 26 games or something stupid like that.
Because I think he hasn't played as many. He's got 25 goals in 26 starts.
28 games total. So, 25 and 28, and he's not having a good season.
5 assists as well. I mean, those are the standards he's got himself because, he got 37 last year?
Yeah.
Or something ridiculous.
36, yeah.
36. So that he set himself a high bar. Now it's if he doesn't reach 30, he's had a bad season. And he probably will reach 30 at this rate, to be honest. But he's a phenomenal goal scorer. He's an absolute machine. We know that. Yes, he can be quiet in some games because of the kind of player he is. But he just commands attention. And if you give him an inch, he's going to bury the chance. And he proved that again on the weekend.
Yeah. Let's go to the Amex as Brighton beat Aston Villa by 1-0. Sim went for 2-1 to Brighton. I went for 3-1 to Villa. And Villa were really disappointing in this game. I thought Brighton from start to finish controlled the game, were creating chances, but they just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net, Brighton have been poor of late, but they just can't seem to score goals. And it's that classic Brighton theme that we've seen over the last 2 or 3 years. De Zerbi kind of got rid of that for a bit, but seems to be creeping back now where they create so many chances, but they just can't seem to put the ball in the back of the net. And it took for a penalty, João Pedro late on. I think, did he miss? No, he put it in the back of the net.
Or he missed it.
He missed it and got the rebound. That was it. And they got what they deserved, 3 points, but they should have made it a lot easier for them.
Yeah, I felt like it was a bit of a hangover from Thursday for Villa. They seemed tired. They did seem lethargic. And Brighton, as much as they've been on poor form, they are the kind of team where if you're off it a bit, they can play they're so good at keeping the ball and they tire you out. And unless you're really intense and very aggressive against them, they can just out-football you and keep you away from the ball. And I think Villa started to get very frustrated with that. They were really struggling keeping up with Brighton, and Brighton running rings around them. To be honest, they'll find it quite easy to keep possession against them. Villa are at their best when they're hounding you, getting close to you, winning the ball in dangerous areas within that mid-block. But as soon as they're off the pace a bit, Brighton just took full advantage of that. And as you say, if it wasn't for some poor finishing, it would have been a much easier day for Brighton. But they'll feel really happy with that win because they've been in really poor form recently, and they needed some good feeling between now and the end of the season. And it was a good win for them, and they thoroughly deserved it. Really dominated that game. From Villa's point of view, obviously it was a chance to basically I think mathematically, if they would have won, they would have got top 4 mathematically. So was a chance for them to do that, didn't take it, but thankfully for them, Spurs didn't take advantage. I don't think they'll feel too bad about it. But obviously a massive game for them on Thursday. I think they'll be looking at.
Yeah, 4-2 down in the Conference League. I mean, I don't know how they lost 4-2 at home to Olympiacos, but we'll see if they can turn it around in Greece. But we go to Stamford Bridge. Chelsea 5, West Ham 0. And after the game, they did confirm that David Moyes will be leaving West Ham at the end of the season, with Julian Lopetegui looks like to be coming in, which I think is a really good move for West Ham. Sim went for 2-2. I went for 2-1 to Chelsea, so I gained a point for this one. And I thought Chelsea just absolutely blew them away in that first half. What was it? 4-0 at half-time? 3-0 at half-time? I can't remember, but Nick Jackson, Cole Palmer, Noni Madueke. I mean, Madueke is starting to come into a bit of form. Nick Jackson, 13 goals this season. For all that he's been clowned upon, I think it's a pretty good return for your first year in the Premier League in a Chelsea team that's not really been performing all year. And obviously Cole Palmer with endless amounts of goal contributions this season. So Chelsea seem to be finding some form at the end of this season.
Yeah, look, they're now 2 points behind 6th, so they've got a realistic chance now of getting that top 6 position, which a few weeks ago seemed really unlikely, but they are ending the season strong. You've got to give them credit. They're definitely looking better, especially at home. They're starting to really put teams to the sword. You saw how they dominated Spurs in midweek, and now they've completely battered West Ham as well. To be fair, West Ham did hit the crossbar, I think, 3 times during the game, so they were probably unlucky not to get on the score sheet. But Chelsea completely pummeled them into submission and playing some really good, high energy, good football and creating chances at will. And 5-0 didn't flatter them in terms of the amount of goals they scored. They created so many opportunities. And Conor Gallagher as well. He's been in quite good form recently, scoring quite a few goals. First half of the season, he was getting a lot of criticism because he just, was getting a lot of positions but wasn't getting on the score sheet. But in recent weeks, he does seem to be finding the net with fairly good regularity and a really good volleyed finish for him as well. So he's ending the season strongly. Palmer's obviously in great form. Jackson's getting on the score sheet. So really great end to the season for Chelsea and Poch. If they get that last Europa League spot, they'll feel like maybe there is something worth pursuing here with Pochettino.
Yeah, I think they should pursue it anyway. I've been saying all season that if you give Pochettino a chance, if you give him the time, he will turn it around eventually. And I think they're gathering momentum now for next season. And I do believe that with a few good signings, if they can make signings, that is with the FFP hanging over their head, then they can push for the top 4 next year for sure.
I think so. West Ham, as you say, yeah, great. I think it's a really good appointment for West Ham. Lopetegui, he's a really good manager. I think he's done well pretty much wherever he's been, apart from Real Madrid, where obviously that was a bit of a disaster. But I think he's an exciting appointment for them. You saw what he did with Wolves last year with very little time. And I think change is needed at West Ham. I think it's all just gone a bit stale with David Moyes. As much as he's done a great job there, it's gone a bit stale. These heavy defeats aren't going away, and I just think they'll be I think they'll be excited with that appointment, and with some good recruits. They got the basis for a good side there, West Ham. So I think Lopetegui will feel like he's got a lot to work with.
They asked David Moyes after the game, like, why is his side taking so many batterings this season? He just responded Declan Rice and said, if you sell the best midfield player in the world, this is what happens. And they've got players that they did sign, like Edson Alvarez, Calvin Phillips in the team. I wonder how they're feeling after those comments. But you look at the Euros, 2 Euros ago or 1 year, I can't remember which one it was, when Calvin Phillips was starting with Declan Rice in the middle of the park. And Calvin Phillips, they were considered on a similar level, weren't they? Mm-hmm. And look how both the trajectories of the two players have gone. And I don't know where Calvin Phillips goes now, but I know he didn't play in this game. But I just wonder where this guy is going to go and where he's going to end up. Maybe back to Leeds.
Well, there's a lot of talk about it, especially if they get promoted. They're going to have to be via the playoffs now. But I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back there somewhere where he feels loved and appreciated. And I'm sure they'll welcome him back. Yeah.
Let's go to Liverpool. Tottenham, it finished 4-2 to Liverpool. Sim went for 4-1, so close to a 5-pointer there. I went for 3-1 to Liverpool. And in the first half, Spurs were just giving up chance after chance after chance. Vicario, I think, made about 5 saves. They did get their 2 goals with terrible defending from Spurs. They got another 2 goals at the beginning stage of the second half of terrible defending. And then Spurs made some changes, got back into the game, but I guess it was just a bit little too late.
Yeah, I think Spurs, going into this game, hearing of the Villa result, maybe would have felt there's a chance to put a bit of pressure on Aston Villa. But unfortunately, I think they got undone by the team selection. I think Postecoglou got it all wrong. Played 3 defensive midfielders in there. Was kind of looking to play in a different kind of way in terms of how they press and being aggressive, and it just completely didn't work. It fell flat on our faces, and we were conceding so many chances. I could see this result coming, though, because of the way Liverpool play, and I know they've been on off form recently, but even against teams who look to defend and restrict them, they were still creating loads of chances. So imagine playing against a really open team like Tottenham, how many chances they'll be able to create, and so it proved. They took them to the sword. Obviously, we're 4-0 up before the hour mark. But slightly bit of credit for Tottenham. Didn't at least had a mini fight back near the end. Got 2 goals. You know, on another day, if one of those chances goes in, maybe make it 4-3. Could have been interesting at the end, but didn't happen for them. So at least they made the scoreline somewhat respectable. But unfortunately, that chance to close the gap on Villa went again, and looks like that that if there was any lingering hopes that they could put pressure on Villa, that result probably pay to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I haven't had hopes for weeks, but I know some people have. But let's go on to the last game of the weekend, and it was Crystal Palace against Manchester United last night at Selhurst Park. It finished 4-0 to Crystal Palace, and the Ollie Glasner reign at Crystal Palace is well up and running. Really good form Palace are on, with the likes of Eze, Olise and Mateta running things. Sim went for 3-1, I went for 2-1, but I mean, no one could predicted this absolute battering for Manchester United. They were not 4-0.
Well, the Villa and United are so open.
I know they are, but 4-0 to lose at Crystal Palace. Manchester United going to Crystal Palace. Nobody's going to predict 4-0.
Not quite 4-0, but I wouldn't.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm not like, I wouldn't have been.
We both predicted Crystal Palace wins.
Yeah,
but I mean, 4-0 is just crazy. Like, when have you seen a Manchester United side go to Selhurst Park and get battered 4-0? Never.
Yeah, probably never. And they did the double over them now this season as well.
To be fair, I don't think Man U have won at Selhurst Park since about 2020. So that's something. But they completely ripped Man United apart. Casemiro and Johnny Evans at centre. I mean, that defensive backline is like literally championship level, with Johnny Evans at the back, aging Casemiro. Casemiro, I think, broke a record, didn't he? 8 times dribbled past last night, and that's got to end his career in the Premier League for sure. I think they'll probably get rid of him in the summer. They've got a lot of things to worry about. Man United, is their manager going to be here next season? They've got a squad where they probably want the majority of players out, so big problems at Man United. But Crystal Palace definitely going in the right direction.
What an end to the season with Palace. If you're a Palace fan, imagine how energized you're going to be by the end of the season, and how well Glasner has what he's done. Because it was really stale and boring under Roy Hodgson. Everyone wasn't happy, and Glasner's really come in. And I know it took him a while to really get this kind of level of performance, but they're really showing some momentum going into next season, and it's so exciting. Eze and Olise, completely unplayable on the day. Mateta as well. What form he's on. He got on the score sheet yet again. An absolute rocket he scored as well with his finish. Unbelievable from him. And they're playing fast, exciting football, direct. Very hard to deal with, and also looks solid at the back. Man United barely created anything. They could barely lay a glove on the keeper Henderson, albeit they did have a goal ruled out, but I thought probably rightly. I think he was completely shoved, Hoyland, on the goalkeeper. I don't think there was much controversy about that decision with the goal being ruled out. But on the day, Olise completely running riot on this one, and 2 great goals from him, although what I would say is the defending for the first one was a shambles. Casemiro just gets walked past, and then he has literally the ball for like 10 seconds. He can just stride into acres of space and has all the time in the world to plant it in the bottom corner. And the second one, I'm sorry, it's a good strike, but it's right down the centre of the goal. And how Onana doesn't get there is ridiculous. I felt like shocking goalkeeping from him. But an absolute mauling from Crystal Palace. A brilliant, brilliant win. And you got to say Glasner is doing a really great job, and very, very exciting times for Palace, especially if they can hang on to Eze and Olise going into next season. Yeah,
I think in my memory, this is the most promising Palace have ever looked. In my memory, I mean, Palace fans have got to be buzzing at the moment with where it looks like their club could be going. And I'm looking at next season, and they can push well into the top half next season for sure, and maybe even look at that 7th spot.
You got next season, yeah. You've got obviously West Ham are going to about a point Lopetegui. You've got Palace now, looking really strong under Glasner. Poch is going to have a full season under Chelsea. You've got Iraola at Bournemouth doing a great job. They're going to want to kick on. You've got obviously Eddie Howe. Newcastle won't have the injury crisis we'll have last year. Hopefully, Ange gets the investment next season as well. Like, there's a lot of promising things happening next season. It is set to be even more competitive than it is this season, I think.
Yeah, we seem to be saying that every year as well. But in terms of Manchester United and Eric Ten Hag, if they do chop Eric Ten Hag this summer, which I think they should, which direction do they go in? Like, who's going to go and take the reins at Man United and be a success there?
I feel like that's part of the reason why they might stick with him just for another year. And I think it might be a mistake, but maybe with the new ownership and whatever, they're willing to give him another shot. But at the moment, it seems like a poison chalice. No one looks to go near it. Mourinho seems to be the latest name in the hat again, but apparently Man United aren't interested in him, so which makes sense. But I don't know what direction they're going, because they've tried every different kind of manager, and none of them seem to can last more than a couple of years.
Yeah, and it seems to be getting worse. I said that last night. I was speaking to Jeremy, our uncle, last night about Manchester United and the manager's job, and we were saying, is that actually, like, why not Iraola for the Man United job?
Well, if I was Iraola, I wouldn't go for it, because you're doing well at Bournemouth. Just like, give yourself another season, prove yourself you can progress, and then see what happens. But if you jump ship now, you've got a good thing, and you jump ship to what could be a terrible situation at Man United. I don't know if like
new manager, new ownership, could be money to spend. You could shape that club in your image. What a big club to do that to as well.
I guess you could. Maybe you could see it as an opportunity. Iraola would be the kind of manager you should be going for, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm Iraola. I think it's such a big risk. I guess look,
I think there could be a lot of change at Man United going in the next few years with Radcliffe coming in. You know, it could be a different Man United that we've seen in the last few years, the way they deal with the transfer market and the way they deal with those things.
Could be. We have to see.
Yeah. All right, well, that is an end. We go on to the Star men. Sim went for Eberechi Eze, no goals, no assists, and a 4-0 battering against Manchester United. And I had Erling Haaland, who had 4 goals. So I get 20 points, which I cut the gap. But quite amazingly, Sim is still ahead by 5 points, 521 to 416. And
you need more than 4 goals to topple me.
We're getting the text every time Haaland scores. Oh, not again, not again, not again. I couldn't quite believe it. With a hat-trick at half-time, I was kind of expecting a bit more. But he got taken off, and Alvarez came on and scored within a second. So... 2 more game weeks left to play. We've got midweek fixtures as well at the end of just before the last game week of the season. So still a lot to play for.
All to play for. I'm still ahead, though. That's the most important thing.
Still ahead, 5 points in it. It's just 1 goal. That's all it is. But we'll see you all very soon. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. See you next time.